Hi, my name is Porrick Nolan, and I'm going to introduce you to the new book inquiry reporting feature that we've just introduced into Big Red Cloud. I'm going to start by opening my sales book. Um, we're currently in February 2013. We have some transactions there. At the bottom of the screen, we have a new feature called Enquiry. So click on that button, and that will open up our book inquiry view of the sales book. By default, it's filtered to the current month, but we can add additional filters here or indeed change this filter. We can also move back to the book view by clicking on book, and I'm back to my February 2013 transactions and data. Click on inquiry again, and I'm back to my inquiry tool. Let's start by selecting a different period so we get some more data. I happen to know we've got data here in 2012. So on the period chooser, we'll choose 2012. We'll start with January, click on OK, and we'll go as far as March 2012. So we'll select those here, select OK, and then click Apply to see the results. So now we have more data here. We've got all our transactions for that period range that we've selected. If I scroll down here to the bottom, we've got 123 records. This first column is a record counter, and here's all my transactions from that period. One useful feature within Book Inquiry is the ability to drill 20 transactions. So for example, if I was to double click on this line here, it drills down to the transaction that's behind that row. So that's quite a useful feature. We'll just close it down here again. Okay, so let's look at the ability to add more filters. So let's click here to add a new filter. This time let's choose a customer account code range. So select customer account code. We have a choice of operators of either equal to a single customer or contains. So let's just look at that. Click on my customer selection here, and I can actually click whichever customers I wish to be included on this report. So let's pick these three customers. Click and select. Click and apply to apply the filter. And now my report has 38 lines. It's reduced the amount of records returned based on the filter criteria I've given it. Let's add another filter. This time let's select an amount filter. Let's say I only wish to look at values between a certain range. So let's look at them between, and then we'll give the values here. So let's call it 1000 and 3000. Click and apply, and that will filter out the report to just that range of values. I can always delete a filter I've created by clicking on the X here to the left. Click on that and apply. And that will filter the data with the remaining criteria. Let's look at one remaining filter type, which is a text-based filter type. So let's add the reference field. And let's use a between here also. So I want it to be all references between 200,000 and 200100, which you can see there's some values there. Click and apply. And I will filter the returned range to just those values. Click here again to remove it and apply. Let me also remove this filter on account code so we get more data to work with for our next section, which is the sort order. Okay, so we're back to having, let's just check here, 123 records. So now we're going to look at the sorting feature. So to use the sorting feature, the easiest way to do it is to click and drag a column up here into the sorting area. So let's say, for example, we wish to sort by account code. Click and drag up here. You'll see that the report immediately refreshes to order by account code. By default, it starts with the smallest, going to the largest, so from A to Z, but I can click here to go in the opposite direction, starting with W, going back right down to A. So that's a really useful feature also. I can click and drag additional sorts up here. So for example, I can click and drag total up here. So it's by account code, and then within account code, it's by value, starting with the lowest and working up to the highest. I can go to additional areas here also if I wish. So for example, if I wanted to go by date also, I can click and drag it up here. To remove a sort, I simply just click it like this, and that removes it from the grid. I can also quickly resort. So let's say, for example, I wish to go by total first, then by account code. Click and drag it over here to swap the positions. And now I've got a report with the lowest first in this case. Click this again. I want to buy highest first. And here we go, a report listing the highest value transaction first, going right down to the lowest one, which is obviously a negative value. Down here, minus 9,877. So sorting is a really useful way to reorder the data that you're looking at, depending on what you're trying to find or what you're trying to achieve with the book inquiry report that you're working on. Now let's start to tidy up the report a little bit. I may not need all the columns that are visible here, so we can hide additional columns. So for example, click down here, select my columns, and over here I can select which columns are visible on this particular book inquiry. So let's say we're not interested in the total, not the total VAT, the unpaid amount. Detail line 2, we don't really use too much, so we'll remove that, and then we'll remove some of these fields here also, just to make the report contain less data that we may not wish to review. So we'll remove all of these. So there we have a much more succinct report, and we can scroll through it. One thing to look at now at this stage is the ability to export this data. So by clicking the export button down here, it will create an Excel file, download it here, as you can see. If we open it here, it's downloaded that report straight into Excel in the order I've selected with the column selected in my book inquiry report. So again, that's a really useful feature if you wish to go and do additional analysis, pivot tables, whatever, using Microsoft Excel. Let's just close out of that. And that's the Excel export feature. Now, having done all of this work, this may be a report, a book inquiry that we routinely wish to run. So if we click on our inquiries here, this is where we manage our saved inquiries. You see I have some here already, so I can click on Save As to save this new one. So we call it, monthly sales summary. We have the option to share it, which means that other users within this company will see this report also. But if we wish to keep it private, just leave that unticked. Click on Save, and it's now available here for future use. Just to show you that in operation, let's close it down. Let's close. We'll go back into our sales book. Open the book inquiry. So initially it defaults to my current month, but I can click on inquiries, load my monthly sales summary, open it, and I'm straight back to my view that I've just designed. Had new data or new transactions been entered, they would also appear here. And anytime we refresh the data here, for example, if another user was adding invoices, once we refresh the data here, it's going to appear in our listing. Now, the final feature I wish to review is the option to print a report. So we can select print here. We'll just do it without any of these options to begin with, and then we'll review these afterwards. So click on display. And it produces a report. Let's wait for it to load. And there's our sales book inquiry. We can output this to either Excel, PDF, or Word for printing if needs be. So that's one option. You'll have seen we also have the option to group. So for example, if we wish to group by month and then by account code, click on display. Grouping essentially means that it will leave a gap after each group changes and give you subtotals. So for example, we selected January, first group by month. Within month, it will then group by account code and give you subtotals at the end of each account code and also at the end of each month. Let me scroll through some of the pages here. So there are my totals for widgets for January and then the overall total sales for January. If I scroll to the end here, click the last page, we get an overall report total also. Let's run the report again. We'll do the same option by month and then by account. The option here for only totals means that it will print a report but will not include the details. So this is useful for a summary report. You want the total sales by customer by month, but we don't want to see the individual sales details. So click on display here, and that gives us our summary report. Same numbers as before, just with the details hidden. So it's again quite a useful way of looking at the data. So we'll close that. That concludes my review of the sales book inquiry. I'm not going to go through the other books, but just to note that the other books available are the following. Let me close this book. You can also access the book inquiry through the reports menu on top. So for example, click on reports, book inquiry. We've already seen the sales book. So you can enter it this way also, but you'll see we have cash receipts, cash payments, payments book, purchases book, sales book, invoice details, bank accounts, and nominal ledger. I hope you've enjoyed this overview of the book inquiry, and please check our website for further details. Thank you very much.